All right, so let's get into mood disorders. Now, it's very important to understand that there are unipolar mood disorders and there are bipolar mood disorders. When we say unipolar, the mood impairment is in one way, right? And unipolar mood disorders is when you think of depression. That is traditionally a unipolar mood disorder. So, major depressive disorder requires the features of depression to be present for at least 2 weeks straight and show up for most of the day or most aspects of the day for 2 weeks straight. It has to cause significant distress. It has to affect your appetite. So, some people who are depressed eat more, some people who are depressed eat less. And relatedly, we see that there is a significant change in weight. So some people gain a lot of weight in a short period of time. So 20 pounds in a month, let's say, or they drop a lot of weight because they're not eating. We also see decreased libido, so decreased sex drive. We see uh, decreased energy, loss of motivation, feelings of worth and guilt, thoughts of death. Now, you don't need all of these. You need 5 features to be present most of the day, if not all day, for at least 2 weeks straight. Now, what you're hearing is that being depressed is not the same thing as being sad. We all have periodic moments where we have the blues or we're sad, but that doesn't mean it's the same as being depressed. There is a time frame that it has to be consistent with. Now, that's major depressive disorder. Now, here's examples of symptoms we might screen a person for depression. Again, you don't need all of them. So I was bothered by things that usually don't bother me. I felt I couldn't shake off the blues, even with the help of friends and family. I'm skipping a little bit. I felt, well, some of these are reverse coded. Um, I felt everything I did was with effort, or I felt my life has been a failure, things like that. These are all linked to depression. Now, things that are the antithesis of depression is look at number 3. It's reverse coded. I felt that I was just as good as other people, right? Well, if you feel that, then that's a sign that you're not depressed. But anyway, there are inventories that have both sides. Now, there's also bipolar disorder. Now, bipolar disorder, it's important to understand there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 is one in which you have a full manic episode where you have elevated or persistent mood for a minimum of a week straight, decreased need for sleep, uh, you know, feelings of invincibility, irritability, etc. These are mania. Now, we do have something called hypomania, which is 4 days or more, or 4 to 6 days, where the manic state isn't as long, but it's still distressing enough to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So let me unpack that. If you have a full manic episode and a depressive episode, that is bipolar 1. If you have a hypomanic episode, so that's 4 days or longer, but not a week, that is bipolar 2. Now, it is more common to have bipolar 1 than bipolar 2, which means that even though it's a shorter duration for a hypomanic episode, most people, usually it lasts longer than a week. Now, a depressive episode has to be there, but what do you do if a person only had a single manic episode? They've never shown any symptom of depression as of yet. The answer is you still diagnose them with bipolar disorder and you specify a single manic episode. And the assumption is through time, they will have their depressive crash. Now, that is our traditional major depressive disorder. That is our traditional bipolar 1, bipolar 2. There are people who don't have the level of severity and symptoms for a full depressive episode or full manic episode. If you had long-term low-grade depression, you can be diagnosed with a dysthymic disorder or what's now called a persistent depressive disorder, right? That is to say, you've had at least 2 features of depression for a minimum of 2 years straight, and you've had no gaps of 2 months at any point. So that would be a dysthymic disorder. So it's low-grade chronic depression. Now, a cyclothymic disorder is the equivalent in a bipolar disorder scenario. So it's a person has their highs aren't as high as a manic episode, their lows are not as low, but once again, it has to be 2 years straight without a gap of 2 months, and they cycle between mild depression and hypomania. Okay, so if we were to put them side by side, they're on poles. They're on polar opposites. So when a person is depressed, they feel gloomy or down, whereas when they're manic, they feel elated. When a person's depressed, they feel withdrawn. Manic, they feel euphoria and want to feel closer. When a person's depressed, they have a hard time making decisions. When a person's manic, they have a desire for action and perhaps tend to be a little bit impulsive in their action. When a person's depressed, they tend to be tired, slow, whereas when they're manic, there's hyperactivity. And then when a person's depressed, they have a hard time organizing their thoughts. When a person's manic, they have like racing thoughts. So side by side, those are mood disorders.